You are watching Business Heroine TV for the entrepreneur who says she will and does. Join the Business Heroine community today at businessheroinemagazine.com. And now, tune into the show.
Welcome. I'm Ann Perry, founder of Business Heroine, and I have a very special guest for you today. Today we're going to talk about the artist heroine. So today I would love to introduce you to Genevieve de Mahy, who graduated from the University of Colorado in Boulder with a BA in theater, creative writing, and French. Now, after graduation, instead of following a traditional theater career route, she collaborated with a group of friends and founded Single Carrot Theater, which is a nonprofit ensemble theater company in Baltimore, Maryland. And this unique path that she carved for herself made her really an interdisciplinary theater artist in the realms of directing, performance, and writing. She's been awarded Best Actress in City Paper's Best of Baltimore Awards, and now she's the artistic director of Single Carrot Theater. Welcome, Genevieve.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation because we have so many heroines in the Business Heroine community who are artists at heart, and there's this whole paradigm of the starving artist, or there's just certain career routes you can take. But you created your own career route. So I would love to hear the story of how Single Carrot Theater was founded.
Sure. Back in 2005 and 2006, when people were starting to get near graduation, a group of us started talking about theater, and our founding artistic director decided that he wanted to start a theater company, and so we started talking to people and assembling people. And from the beginning, it had a very communal and collaborative approach to it, where we were going to do it all. We were going to be the artists, and we were going to be the business people. I think something we didn't realize when we were starting it is that we were becoming business people. And so we were all, getting our theater degrees and trying to figure out what we were going to do with our lives. And for me in particular, I was really attracted to the idea because as I was doing graduation, I was starting to think about what I wanted my future to be. And I didn't want to be somebody who was, hitting the pavement and auditioning all the time or hopping, trying to find any sort of job in theater. And what attracted me about this idea was that we would be able to do the theatrical work that we wanted to do. Frequently, theater artists don't have a choice in what they do. They have to be in whatever play they're cast in or whatever play they're offered any sort of design or directing opportunity, regardless of how much they love it or hate it. And so what was attractive to me about this idea was that we would get to choose the work we wanted to do, and we would be doing what we felt was important in theater. Some of the founding principles of the company as well were that we polled people, who were either in college or had recently graduated college about theater and asking people why they don't see theater. And the main reasons were the cost, it being boring, and feeling like it was elitist. And so we really wanted to do theater, one that we were interested in, and hopefully people would create a new generation of theater goers and doing work that's exciting, that's innovative, and things that really make it an experience beyond just sitting in your chair in the dark and listening to really old language. And so we do a lot of contemporary work. We do a lot of new work and bringing up lesser known playwrights or up and coming playwrights to really make theater exciting and innovative and something that is an experience rather than just entertainment.
Oh, wow.
So we decided to pick the best city in which to found a theater company. We did a lot of research and ended up picking Baltimore, Maryland. And as people graduated, some people took some time to do whatever else they wanted to do before moving. And then people moved here between 2005 and 6 to 2008 and trickled in. And then we got here and came to the city and started doing productions. And now we're here 8 years later.
That's amazing. There are so many amazing things about this story, and it's so genius because, first of all, I just want to presence this for all the heroines tuning in. You saw a struggle that very well would have been in your own career path, having to audition constantly and take the scraps that you're given or take whatever it is, whether it feels authentic to you or not, because you just have to get in the game and hustle. And you came up with a way to just bypass that and just, you can have any role you want because you are the one who founded it. Like, that's awesome. It's just genius. And the other piece is that you saw an area in the whole industry that wasn't jiving in a way that you knew it could, or like you said, bringing in a new generation of theater goers. And you decided to take it upon yourselves to change the theater industry in a way. So it's really an impressive story. And what also impresses me when I hear this is, kind of blows my mind a little bit, is how you orchestrated all these people to move across the country. This group of people, you were all in Boulder, in Colorado, yeah? And you moved to Maryland. And it's not that this organization was founded by one person and having one person lead the way, which a lot of the business heroines start as solopreneurs, where it's, one person, their ideas, and putting out there what they want to put out there in the world. But you did it with a group. So I'm super curious to hear what specific challenges and rewards come with leading an ensemble in such a community-oriented way.
Sure. So I've been part of the ensemble since its founding, and at this point I've been the artistic director for a couple of months.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Previously, a couple of years ago, I was the development director for many years, doing fundraising and that sort of thing. But it's a really interesting model in the sense that we make all major decisions collectively by a vote. So we are all major stakeholders in the success of the company. And we were doing this when we founded, and then we sort of realized we were doing this. Like I said, we all realized we became business people and people who knew how to run a nonprofit, which we were like, oh, we're running a business. Oh, that's what's happening right now. A theater company is a business. And so we have taught ourselves to do all of those jobs. And so as we've evolved, all of our major decisions are made collectively. So the benefit of that is you have 10 ideas in the room that are all, people are voicing their opinions, everyone's thinking through. You get thoughts coming from so many different angles, things that you aren't thinking of when you're making a decision, and then somebody's like, oh, what about this? And what about this? And they're things that you haven't thought of before. I think the challenges at times, and we've had discussions about this, is we're always changing who's in charge, not in terms of the artistic leadership necessarily, but I'm acting in a show right now. So there's a director who's in the company, and while we're acting, she's my boss, essentially. And then we leave the rehearsal hall, and I'm her boss. And so we're always, or sometimes one person will be acting in a show, and then another person will be directing it, and then the next show they switch. Mm-hmm. So there's always this shifting hierarchy that we've had to negotiate and navigate over time, of really figuring out who's in charge when. And then sometimes we're all in charge. And so discussions we've been having lately are about decision making. And as we grow and as we've acquired new company members over the years, really getting to a point where we can define what decisions go to the ensemble, the collective group, and what decisions can people move forward with on their own. And so we're kind of in the stages of navigating that and really defining what this collective what role this collective has. I think something else to point out is most theater companies have this separation between the artistic staff and the administrative staff. And in my opinion, that's part of the reason why people could say that American theater is suffering, is you have these people who are working in the office all day, and then you have these artists, and they don't have a relationship with each other. And we felt it was really important to unify those two roles. And as a result, I think we've built this very tight community of our patrons and people who come to see shows, because they call us on the phone and they talk to somebody who they just saw act in a show. Or they come to the theater and somebody will be working in the box office that they saw the show they directed or saw the show they designed. And so it creates this very deep relationship where the artists, you know, in American theater, artists are moving around all the time. Usually they're in this city doing this show, and then they're in another city doing this show. And so they have no relationship with the community that the theater exists in. And we've really developed that community and made sure that we have that really close relationship with the community. All of our patrons, most people have their favorite company member that if they're acting in a show, they'll make sure they have to see it because that's their favorite person. And there are no qualms in them sharing who their favorites are.
So like American Idol with like puffy paint signs, like, I love you.
It's not like that quite a bit, although I wouldn't be opposed to it. But people are like, oh, is so-and-so acting in this show? Because I really want to see stuff they do. And so we do have this very unique and very familial relationship, one with each other and also with our patrons and with our customers.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I feel like the group of you could write a book about leadership, you know, just about how you work with each other, and then leadership within the community and leadership as far as changing paradigms. It's really fascinating. So please write that book.
It becomes a challenge. It's challenging to navigate at times, but it definitely is a skill, and a lot of it comes out of love. You know, I mean, love for theater, but also love for each other, and having those roles changing strengthens those relationships, I think.
Yeah. Well, I would like an autographed copy of the book when it comes out.
In a couple of decades when I have a free moment.
So I know that another part of your background is international development work, and you worked with local organizations around the world: Egypt, India, Indonesia, North Africa. How did this work influence your artistic work?
I think something I realized working at an international development organization, I've always had an affinity. My two loves have been, kind of the idea of a global community and theater. And so figuring out what that path is and how to unite those two is a lifelong mission of mine. But it really, I think it's so interesting when, and I also did financial work with these organizations and in different countries and in different cultures. Something that can seem very black and white becomes very different as it's viewed from different cultures in terms of how people view finance, how people view operations, how they organize themselves, how they approach organization culturally, and how they approach operations culturally. And I mean, one, communication is huge in terms of it being able to navigate somebody coming in with a completely different mindset. And something that I think is so interesting about theater, and something I've thought about even more, is you really have to pull yourself out of every perspective that you come from, and try to see something from somebody else's perspective that sometimes you have very little common ground with in the sense of how you take information and process it. And I think it's so fast, even work culture in different countries, of how people interact in a workplace, what their hierarchical structure is like, how they engage with you as, in this situation we were grantors, so how they engage with a donor. All of those things really shine a light on what you do at your own organization, either artistically or even organizationally, to really be aware of culture in a workplace, and also what is American workplace culture, what is your organization's workplace culture, and I think the other thing that really helped me a lot was there's a teaching element as well, in terms of, if we're working with small organizations sometimes, that I was working for a very large organization, but we were working with organizations that sometimes were more like the size of single care theater, and to really understand the struggles of being a really small organization and having a heavy workload, and how to set up systems that help people work better, and get buy-in for that.
Wow.
And I think, in terms of an artistic career, I would love, I think cultural exchange is such an enlightening experience to see how like I said, you're both looking at the same thing, but you see two different things when you're looking at it. And having a deeper understanding and exchange of those ideas is very enriching.
I love that perspective. It makes so much sense. I mean, I can really see it from an artistic perspective of, you're going to be playing a character that maybe you would not normally relate to in your waking day, and to embody that character. And then also what you shared earlier about your staff meetings, when you're all bringing in your own ideas, and it's like, I never would have thought of it from that perspective, and just seeing how all of it fits together, and there's no such thing as really right or wrong, but like, it's just this different angle, and you're all looking at the same thing, and solving a puzzle with these 8 different perspectives or whatever. Yeah, that's really fascinating.
And theater's naturally a collaborative art. A painter or a novelist can sit in their studio or in a room and work out an entire art piece together on their own.
Right.
But with theater, you have actors, you have a director, you have designers, you have this whole team of people that are all working to make one thing. It's just a totally different experience than a lot of other art forms, because everybody's building the piece together. Yeah,
super fascinating. So one of the questions that I'm dying to ask you, because earlier I told you congratulations for being the artistic director, and the reason is because I know that this particular role in the theater world tends to be male dominated. So I'm really curious about your experience in this role of artistic director, and what you would say the specific challenges are that women face in arts leadership.
So this has been kind of on the forefront of the conversation within the theater industry. Theater in general is actually an industry that is fairly female heavy, in the sense that, traditionally there are always more actresses than actors, and there are a huge number of women who are involved in theater or have desire to be involved in theater. But on the leadership side, it's very male dominated. We have the fortune in Baltimore, something we were just talking about recently, was actually in Baltimore, almost all of the cultural institutions are led by women, which is pretty unique. All of the major art museums, the symphony, are led by women. Of theaters in Baltimore, though, there are 4 professional or semi-professional theaters, and I'm the only woman of that group. So I think, in terms of challenges, really the conversation in theater, as it's been in other forms of entertainment, is where, so many stories are told from the perspective of the heterosexual white man. And how do you bring out those other stories? And so there was a discussion recently about female directors and female playwrights. And and also playwrights of color, and how to make sure that those stories are being told. Frequently theaters, are looking, they pick works from the past, either the recent past or the very long ago past, if you go to Shakespeare or to the Greek classics or anything like that. And until very recently, it's almost been entirely white men playwrights. And so there has to be an effort to bring up those female playwrights and bring up those other stories and showcase them. For Single Carrot, it's never been something that we've really, I don't want to say we haven't thought about it, because we've been aware of it, but we haven't had as much of an issue, I think, as some other, as if you look at the American theater overall, the number of female playwrights we've brought, the number of female directors we've brought. But even within our own company, until recently, we've always had more men and women in the company. And now we're an even split. And so there is this, within Single Carrot, I don't feel like it makes any difference what my gender is in terms of how we share information. But overall it's a problem that the industry is aware of, but I don't know how different organizations are more or less active in trying to solve it, fix it, and trying to leverage it, because there are so many female theater artists. I think in terms of directing, I think there are advantages to being a female director. There may have been times, I think, as many women experience, as a leader, where you have to put, you have to craft how you behave and how you message yourself, and be more aware of it than male leaders. And there have been conversations too about, there's this article about a graduate school teacher who's teaching female directors to use their word choices very carefully so that they're not softening themselves, that they're not using language as they're directing actors that diminishes their opinion or their viewpoint. And for example, and I don't want to misquote the article, but there are things where, they'll say like, "Oh, what do you think about trying something like this?" Instead of, "Could you try this?" Or maybe, what if you did this? Or, I don't know, does that make sense? And things that make you, in your language, it makes you inherently less assertive, by undercutting everything that you put out there. Right. And so I think the challenge really is to use the advantages that we have as women, which I do think there is this, compassion and reaching out to people and really embracing this communal, a community, but also really figuring out how to assert yourself to the point where you are the one who's in charge. And something that I've realized in the past 2 months of being the artistic director is I have been so used to being part of this group, and now I'm realizing that I'm also the one who's leading the group. And I knew that, but as things happen and as decisions are made, I'm like, well, somebody needs to do this. I'm like, oh, I need to do this. That's me. Yeah. And so it's a very interesting shift with this group and being a woman and navigating what that looks like. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. It's really fascinating. We could talk about that for 2 hours alone, I feel like. Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, so I am curious if there are moments in this whole journey and all of this amazingness that you guys have created together, if there have been moments where you were just really scared or wanted to give it all up.
Yes. Every day I'm a little bit scared. And I think depending on how you deal with that fear, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, it drives you. It pushes you forward. There have been many times over the years where I've reached some sort of breaking point. And I think that's the nature of being an entrepreneur. I also think that's the nature of being a theater artist and an artist in general, is when you become so invested in something you're working on, you will work yourself to the bone to get it right. Mm-hmm. And something that we've talked about over the years in Single Carrot is celebrating our successes more than just than focusing on like, it could have been better, it could have been better, it could have been better. Yeah. And that is part of the thing that pushes us forward. So yes, I mean, there are plenty of times where I'm always terrified. And like I said, I think it's good to be a little bit terrified. There's always the question of like, what if it doesn't work? Yeah. What if this all fails? Yeah. And you know, there's comfort in being like, okay, well, it's been 8 years, so it'll take a lot for it to fail at this point. Yeah. But even the first show we did in Baltimore, we had raised some money in Colorado before moving to Baltimore, and we took all of that money and put it in the first show we did. And so I was like, well, hopefully people come to see it. Yeah. Hopefully it makes money.
Wow.
If it doesn't, we don't have any money left.
Yeah. Those leaps of faith. And I often say the only fear as an entrepreneur that you need to get over is the fear of fear, because it's just part of the game.
Yeah. I would agree. And even with any entrepreneur, your fear is a part of daily life.
Butterflies in your stomach are a good thing. It means you're growing and stretching yourself.
Yeah. And it's really figuring out how to channel it, you know, how to take it as, how to make it not something that weighs you down, but something that lifts you up and drives you forward.
It's really
and it's always a balance. Sometimes the fear becomes so great that you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And you want to, it weighs you down. And then you have to figure out, okay, well, how do I break out of this? How do I fix it?
And community. My advice is community. Go to those people who can see who you really are through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And luckily we have this structure that has a whole group of people who's equally as invested, which is a huge advantage.
That's awesome. So what advice do you have for the artistically inclined heroines out there who they want to invent their own career path and bypass the hustle and reinvent paradigms? I would love to hear what advice you have for them.
Mm-hmm. I think a couple of things. One is work ethic and discipline. In our early years, we speculated what would have happened if we would have just stayed in Colorado and done the exact same thing, but in Colorado. And ultimately, we felt like it may not have worked, in the sense that we would have had our family there, we would have had friends, we would have had other opportunities that would have pulled us in other directions, and would we have been as dedicated? We moved to Baltimore and we didn't know a soul in the world. So the only thing we had was each other and this idea. And so we put everything we had into it. And I think especially for artists, there are many talented artists in the world, but work ethic and discipline is what makes someone successful. Also realizing that anything you do, even if it's artistic, you're still starting a business. Even if it's just you're marketing yourself as an artist, you are a business person and you have to market yourself in the way so you can get the work you want to get. We kind of decided we were doing this thing, and we do a wide variety of work, but we always try to make sure that we're focused on doing work that's surprising and unexpected and innovative and rich. I think the other thing is, oh my gosh, what was I gonna say? is making contacts and developing a community and a network. I think the most valuable thing for us is somehow finding people who like to tell other people about what they do. And so there are a few people that we were able to connect with in the Baltimore community who then went and told everyone else they knew about us. And the great thing about word of mouth, and we always say, theater thrives on word of mouth, and that's what we always tell people. The most powerful endorsement you can have is somebody who believes in what you're doing. And if they do, and they tell people, and they tell their friends, and they tell their family, and they tell people they know, hey, I saw this great show, I saw this great thing, that's the best marketing you can have. So if you can attract those people and value them and appreciate them and make them feel like they are part of it. Some of our early board members, they were a part of it, and they have gotten us to where we are, and they have investment in it too. The more you let people help you and let people be involved in what you're doing, they're bought into it too, and they want to see your success just as much as you do. Yeah.
This is really brilliant business advice. I just want to highlight it and summarize that for the heroines listening. There are quite a few nuggets there. One was discipline and work ethic, and then also the dedication to what you're doing, being willing to receive support, tapping into community, and finding those connectors, those people who love to share the message. That is a little magic nugget. When you find someone who loves to talk about what you do, empower them to do so. And also creating community around what it is you're doing. And that goes for any business. If you're, an artistic business owner, well, business in general, I think entrepreneurship is art. Yeah. But, whatever your business is, creating community around what you are doing out there is magic also. Awesome. Thank you for those magic nuggets. And I have to say, as you were talking, all of a sudden I'm seeing not only a book, but a documentary on you guys. I'm like, oh, and a tagline that's like, all they had was each other and this idea.
We've joked about the pilot, like the TV show pilot that's based on
Oh,
us.
Yes. It would be a really good
We haven't gotten
TV
the documentary out, but yeah.
Yes. Totally. Okay. Awesome. Well, Genevieve, thank you so much. I would love to hear how our heroines can learn more about Single Carrot Theater, especially if they're passing through Baltimore.
Sure. So our website is singlecarrot.com. And we are located in Baltimore, which if you live elsewhere and you're wondering how the geography of the East Coast works, which is something I didn't know until I got here, Baltimore is about an hour from Washington, D.C., about 2 hours from Philadelphia, and about 3.5 hours from New York. It's much further from Boston than you might think. And those are all the cities nearby. So if you're ever passing through the area, it's a quick bus, train, car ride from those places. We also have recently launched a podcast. So if you are never going to be on the East Coast, but you want to hear about what we're talking about, it's about on a monthly basis. It's called Freshly Observed. And it's me talking to people in the arts community, in the Baltimore community, about theater and art and cities and any topics that we decide. So that's another way to stay connected if you're never going to set foot in Baltimore. And that is also on the website as well.
Okay, great. And we will make sure we have a link
on
to that.
iTunes.
What's that?
And it's available on iTunes as well.
Awesome.
We've had one episode thus far, but there will be many more.
There will be more. Well, we will make sure that we have those links available on the article here in Business Heroine magazine. Genevieve, thank you so much for joining us. I just loved hearing this story of what you have created. It's super inspiring, and I hope that our beautiful artist heroines out there listening are soaking in these nuggets and getting inspiration for themselves, and can't wait for our audience to check out Single Carrot Theater too.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Have a great day. And bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
You have been watching Business Heroine TV for the entrepreneur who says she will and does. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out what's new at businessheroinemagazine.com today.